A careless man burns a stray dog, then discovers that the old woman has been taking care of it. The rusty fire escape creaked under the weight of the old tomcat, his claws scratching against the peeling paint. Below, the alley reeked of stale garbage and despair, a fitting backdrop for the lives of its forgotten inhabitants. Among them was Angel, a scruffy terrier mix with fur the color of dust and eyes that held the sadness of 1,000 sunsets. He wasn't always an alley dog. Once he had a home, a family, a name that wasn't synonymous with his current existence. But those days were a distant memory, blurred by the harsh realities of abandonment and neglect. Now he was just another shadow, scavenging for scraps, avoiding the kicks and curses of passers-by, and seeking solace in the company of other outcasts. The old tomcat, a seasoned survivor named Scar, had taken Angel under his wing, teaching him the unwritten rules of the alley: where to find the best scraps, how to avoid the grumpy butcher's watchful eye, and most importantly, how to disappear when the shadows deepened and the dangers of the night emerged. One stifling summer evening, the alley was unusually quiet. Even the rats seemed to have sought refuge from the oppressive heat. Angel lay panting in the meager shade of an overflowing dumpster, his tongue lolling out, his body heavy with exhaustion. Scar, perched atop a stack of discarded crates, watched him with a mixture of pity and concern. "You all right, pup?" he rasped, his voice a low growl. Angel lifted his head, his tail giving a weak thump against the cracked pavement. "Just hot," he wheezed. "Never felt heat like this before." Scar narrowed his yellow eyes, scanning the alley. "Something's brewing," he muttered. "Can't you feel it?" Angel sniffed the air, but all he could smell was the usual stench of decay and despair. "Feel what?" Before Scar could answer, a door slammed open at the end of the alley. A figure emerged, a man with a hulking frame and a face contorted in anger. He clutched a steaming pot in his hand, its contents bubbling ominously. Angel's fur bristled. He knew that man. It was the owner of the nearby diner, a man notorious for his short temper and his disdain for stray animals. He had chased Angel away countless times, his curses echoing through the alley. "Get out of here, pup," Scar hissed, leaping down from his perch. That human's got trouble written all over him. But it was too late. The man had spotted Angel, his eyes blazing with fury. He raised the pot, his lips curling into a cruel sneer. "You filthy mutt," he bellowed, "always sniffing around my trash. This will teach you a lesson." And with a swift, malicious movement, he hurled the boiling contents of the pot towards Angel. The searing liquid engulfed Angel in a wave of agony. He yelped, a sound of pure, unadulterated pain, as the scalding water seared his flesh. He tried to run, to escape the burning torment, but his legs wouldn't obey. He stumbled, crashing against the brick wall, his whimpers echoing through the desolate alley. The man, his anger momentarily satiated, turned and retreated back into his diner, slamming the door shut behind him. Scar watched in horror, his heart pounding in his chest. He had seen cruelty before, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. As the steam cleared, Scar saw Angel lying motionless on the ground, his body trembling, his fur matted with blood and burns. He rushed to his side, his own fear forgotten. "Angel!" he cried, nudging the pup with his nose. "Angel, can you hear me?" Angel whimpered softly, his eyes barely open. He tried to lick Scar's face, but his tongue felt thick and heavy. Scar knew he had to do something. He couldn't leave Angel to die in this alley. He had to get him help. But where? And how? He looked around frantically, his gaze falling on a flickering neon sign at the end of the street. Speedvet, 24-hour emergency care. A glimmer of hope ignited in Scar's heart. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for Angel. Scar had never ventured beyond the alley. The world outside was a chaotic maze of roaring metal beasts and indifferent humans, a place where he felt exposed and vulnerable. But Angel's life hung in the balance, and fear was a luxury he could no longer afford. He nudged Angel gently, his rough tongue lapping at the pup's burns. "Stay strong, pup," he purred. "I'll be back soon." With a deep breath, Scar darted out of the alley, his heart pounding like a drum. The street was a blur of headlights and honking horns, a sensory overload that made him dizzy. He weaved through the traffic, his eyes fixed on the neon sign, a beacon of hope in the urban jungle. The veterinary clinic was a haven of bright lights and antiseptic smells. Scar hesitated at the entrance, his instincts screaming at him to turn back. But the image of Angel, lying helpless in the alley, spurred him on. He slipped through the automatic doors, his claws clicking on the polished floor. The waiting room was empty, the only sound the gentle hum of an air conditioner. A woman with kind eyes and a warm smile sat behind the reception desk, her attention focused on a computer screen. Scar approached cautiously, his tail held low. He had never interacted with a human like this before, and he wasn't sure what to expect. The woman looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Well, hello there," she said softly. "Aren't you a handsome fellow?" Scar blinked, taken aback by her gentle tone. He wasn't used to being called handsome, especially not by a human. He tried to meow, but his voice caught in his throat. He paced back and forth, his agitation growing. He had to make her understand to get her to follow him to the alley. The woman, sensing his distress, rose from her chair. "Are you lost, kitty?" she asked, crouching down. "Are you looking for your home?" Scar meowed again, this time managing a weak sound. He turned and headed towards the door, looking back to see if she was following. The woman hesitated for a moment, then curiosity got the better of her. She grabbed a leash from under the desk and followed Scar out into the night. The journey back to the alley felt like an eternity. Scar darted through the traffic, his heart pounding with anxiety. He prayed that Angel was still alive, that he hadn't succumbed to his injuries. Finally, they reached the alley. Scar led the woman to where Angel lay, his body still and silent. The woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "The poor thing." She knelt beside Angel, her fingers gently probing his burns. Angel whimpered softly, his eyes fluttering open. "He's alive," the woman exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. "But he needs help, and fast." She scooped Angel into her arms, his small body limp and lifeless. Scar watched, his heart filled with gratitude. He had done it. He had saved Angel. The woman rushed back to the clinic, Scar trailing behind. As she laid Angel on the examination table, a team of veterinarians sprang into action. Scar watched from a corner, his anxiety giving way to hope. He didn't know what the future held for Angel, but he knew one thing for sure. He had found a safe haven, a place where he would receive the care and compassion he so desperately needed. Scar had never ventured beyond the alley. The world outside was a chaotic maze of roaring metal beasts and indifferent humans, a place where he felt exposed and vulnerable. But Angel's life hung in the balance, and fear was a luxury he could no longer afford. He nudged Angel gently, his rough tongue lapping at the pup's burns. "Stay strong, pup," he purred. "I'll be back soon." With a deep breath, Scar darted out of the alley, his heart pounding like a drum. The street was a blur of headlights and honking horns, a sensory overload that made him dizzy. He weaved through the traffic, his eyes fixed on the neon sign, a beacon of hope in the urban jungle. The veterinary clinic was a haven of bright lights and antiseptic smells. Scar hesitated at the entrance, his instincts screaming at him to turn back. But the image of Angel, lying helpless in the alley, spurred him on. He slipped through the automatic doors, his claws clicking on the polished floor. The waiting room was empty, the only sound the gentle hum of an air conditioner. A woman with kind eyes and a warm smile sat behind the reception desk, her attention focused on a computer screen. Scar approached cautiously, his tail held low. He had never interacted with a human like this before, and he wasn't sure what to expect. The woman looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Well, hello there," she said softly. "Aren't you a handsome fellow?" Scar blinked, taken aback by her gentle tone. He wasn't used to being called handsome, especially not by a human. He tried to meow, but his voice caught in his throat. He paced back and forth, his agitation growing. He had to make her understand, to get her to follow him to the alley. The woman, sensing his distress, rose from her chair. "Are you lost, kitty?" she asked, crouching down. "Are you looking for your home?" Scar meowed again, this time managing a weak sound. He turned and headed towards the door, looking back to see if she was following. The woman hesitated for a moment, then curiosity got the better of her. She grabbed a leash from under the desk and followed Scar out into the night. The journey back to the alley felt like an eternity. Scar darted through the traffic, his heart pounding with anxiety. He prayed that Angel was still alive, that he hadn't succumbed to his injuries. Finally, they reached the alley. Scar led the woman to where Angel lay, his body still and silent. The woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "The poor thing." She knelt beside Angel, her fingers gently probing his burns. Angel whimpered softly, his eyes fluttering open. "He's alive," the woman exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. "But he needs help, and fast." She scooped Angel into her arms, his small body limp and lifeless. Scar watched, his heart filled with gratitude. He had done it. He had saved Angel. The woman rushed back to the clinic, Scar trailing behind. As she laid Angel on the examination table, a team of veterinarians sprang into action. Scar watched from a corner, his anxiety giving way to hope. He didn't know what the future held for Angel, but he knew one thing for sure. He had found a safe haven, a place where he would receive the care and compassion he so desperately needed. The fluorescent lights of the examination room seemed to amplify the severity of Angel's injuries. Dr. Emily Carter, the clinic's lead veterinarian, gently examined the burns that covered a significant portion of his small body. The scalding water had not only caused severe damage to his skin and fur, but had also left him with a broken leg. His breathing was shallow, his pulse weak. "Poor little guy," Dr. Carter murmured, her voice filled with concern. "He's in rough shape." She turned to her assistant, a young woman named Sarah. "Get me some saline solution and pain medication. We need to stabilize him immediately." Sarah rushed to fulfill the orders, her movements quick and efficient. Dr. Carter, meanwhile, continued her examination, her brow furrowed in concentration. Angel whimpered softly, his eyes pleading for relief. "It's okay, little one," Dr. Carter soothed, her voice gentle. "We're going to take care of you." She carefully cleaned the burns, removing the debris and applying a soothing ointment. The pain medication soon took effect, and Angel's whimpers subsided into soft, shallow breaths. Dr. Carter set the broken leg, her experienced hands working with practiced precision. She then wrapped Angel in a warm blanket, placing him in a comfortable bed in the recovery room. "He's going to need around-the-clock care," she told Sarah. "Keep a close eye on him, and let me know if there are any changes." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with compassion for the small, injured creature. She settled into a chair beside Angel's bed, watching over him with a motherly concern. As the night wore on, Angel's condition remained critical. He drifted in and out of consciousness, his body battling the trauma and pain. Sarah kept a vigilant watch, administering medication, changing his bandages, and offering words of comfort. In the quiet hours of the morning, a figure appeared in the doorway of the recovery room. It was Mrs. Eleanor Peterson, a regular volunteer at the clinic and a well-known animal lover in the community. She had received a call from Dr. Carter about Angel's condition and had rushed over immediately. Eleanor's heart ached at the sight of the small, bandaged creature. She had a soft spot for animals, especially those who had suffered at the hands of humans. She gently stroked Angel's head, her touch light and reassuring. "You're safe now, little one," she whispered. "No one will hurt you ever again." Something about Angel's vulnerability, his quiet resilience, touched a deep chord within Eleanor. She felt a surge of protectiveness, a desire to nurture him back to health. As the days turned into weeks, Eleanor became a constant presence at the clinic. She spent hours by Angel's side, reading to him, talking to him, and singing him soft lullabies. She brought him special treats, homemade meals, and toys to keep him entertained. Slowly but surely, Angel began to respond to her care. He would wag his tail weakly when she entered the room, his eyes brightening with recognition. He would lick her hand gratefully when she fed him, his small body trembling with affection. Dr. Carter observed the growing bond between Eleanor and Angel with a smile. She knew that Angel had found a special person, someone who would love and cherish him unconditionally. One afternoon, as Eleanor was reading to Angel, he did something unexpected. He struggled to his feet, his injured legs still weak, and nuzzled his head against her chest. Eleanor's heart melted. She wrapped her arms around him, tears welling up in her eyes. "Oh, Angel," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You're going to be okay." In that moment, Eleanor made a decision. She would adopt Angel, give him the loving home he deserved. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Angel had a long road to recovery ahead of him, both physically and emotionally. But Eleanor was determined to be there for him, every step of the way. Eleanor's cozy cottage on the outskirts of town had always been a sanctuary, a place filled with the comforting scent of baking bread and the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. But since Angel's arrival, it had transformed into something more, a haven of healing and unconditional love. The initial days were challenging. Angel, still weak and in pain, required constant attention. Eleanor, a retired school teacher with a gentle demeanor and a heart full of compassion, embraced the role of caregiver with unwavering dedication. She rearranged her living room, creating a comfortable space for Angel with soft blankets, plush toys, and a sunny window overlooking the garden. She spent hours by his side, coaxing him to eat, administering his medication, and changing his bandages with a tenderness that belied her age. She spoke to him in soothing tones, reading aloud from her favorite books and sharing stories of her life, her voice a comforting presence in the quiet house. At night, she slept on the couch beside his makeshift bed, waking up every few hours to check on him, to reassure him that he wasn't alone. She sang him lullabies, her voice a gentle balm to his troubled sleep, her hand resting lightly on his bandaged head. Slowly, Angel began to trust her. He would wag his tail tentatively when she approached, his eyes filled with a hesitant gratitude. He would lick her hand when she offered him treats, his small body trembling with a mixture of fear and affection. Eleanor, in turn, found herself deeply attached to the little creature. His vulnerability, his resilience, his unwavering spirit in the face of adversity, touched her in a way she had never expected. She had always loved animals, but her connection with Angel was different. It was as if he had filled a void in her heart, a space she hadn't realized was empty. One sunny afternoon, as Eleanor was helping Angel with his physiotherapy exercises, a wave of dizziness washed over her. She stumbled, her vision blurring, and collapsed onto the couch. Angel, sensing her distress, whimpered and nudged her hand with his nose. Eleanor, her head pounding, managed to reach for the phone and call her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, a kind woman who often checked in on her. Mrs. Jenkins rushed over, finding Eleanor pale and weak. She immediately called for an ambulance. At the hospital, Eleanor was diagnosed with exhaustion and mild dehydration. The doctor advised her to rest and take it easy, warning her that her age made her more susceptible to such episodes. Eleanor, however, was more concerned about Angel. She fretted about who would care for him, who would feed him and give him his medication. Mrs. Jenkins, sensing her anxiety, assured her that she would look after Angel until Eleanor returned home. Back at the cottage, Mrs. Jenkins did her best to care for Angel, but he seemed to sense Eleanor's absence. He refused to eat, his tail drooped, and his eyes held a deep sadness. He spent most of his time by the front door, his ears perked up, listening for the familiar sound of Eleanor's car. When Eleanor finally returned home, a few days later, Angel's joy was unrestrained. He barked excitedly, wagging his tail furiously, and jumped into her arms, licking her face with unrestrained affection. Eleanor, her heart overflowing with love, hugged him tightly, whispering reassurances and promises of never leaving him again. From that day on, their bond deepened. Angel became her constant companion, her shadow, her furry confidant. He followed her everywhere, his tail wagging, his eyes shining with devotion. He slept at the foot of her bed, his soft snores a comforting lullaby. He greeted her with enthusiastic barks every morning, his joy infectious. Eleanor, in turn, showered him with love and affection. She cooked him special meals, took him for walks in the park, and spent hours playing with him in the garden. She talked to him about her day, her hopes, her fears, finding solace in his silent companionship. Angel's presence filled her life with a newfound purpose. He had not only healed her heart, but had also given her a reason to wake up every morning with a smile. He had shown her the true meaning of unconditional love, the kind that transcends species and heals the deepest wounds. Life with Angel brought a rhythm and joy to Eleanor's days that she hadn't experienced in years. The quiet cottage, once filled with the echoes of solitude, now resonated with the happy clicks of Angel's paws on the wooden floor and the cheerful sound of his bark whenever the mailman approached. However, the scars of Angel's past were not easily forgotten. Nightmares often plagued his sleep, jolting him awake with whimpers and trembling. Eleanor would be there in an instant, her hand gently stroking his fur, her voice a soothing murmur in the darkness. "It's all right, Angel," she'd whisper, her voice thick with sleep. "You're safe now. I'm here." These episodes brought back painful memories for Eleanor as well. She had lived a long life, a life filled with love and laughter, but also with loss and heartbreak. The death of her husband, John, 10 years prior, had left a void in her life that she had never quite been able to fill. John had been a kind and gentle soul, a man who shared her love for animals. They had often talked about adopting a dog, but somehow, life had always gotten in the way. Now, with Angel by her side, Eleanor felt a bittersweet sense of fulfillment, a feeling that John would have been happy to see her finally sharing her home with a furry companion. One crisp autumn afternoon, while strolling through the park with Angel, Eleanor encountered a familiar face, Mrs. Agatha Miller, a fellow member of the local book club and a woman known for her sharp tongue and even sharper judgment. Well, Eleanor," Mrs. Miller remarked, her eyes fixed on Angel. "I see you've finally taken in one of those stray mutts." Eleanor bristled at the dismissive tone. "His name is Angel," she corrected, her voice firm. "And he's not a mutt. He's a very special dog." Mrs. Miller raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Special? He looks rather ordinary to me. Probably riddled with diseases, those strays." Eleanor's patience wore thin. "Angel is a survivor," she retorted. "He's overcome more hardship than you can imagine, and he has brought more joy into my life than I ever thought possible." Mrs. Miller sniffed dismissively. "Well, don't come crying to me when he tears up your furniture or bites one of the neighborhood children." With that parting shot, Mrs. Miller marched off, leaving Eleanor fuming. Angel, sensing her agitation, nudged her hand with his nose, his eyes filled with concern. "Don't you worry, Angel," Eleanor murmured, stroking his fur. "Some people just don't understand the bond we share." Later that evening, as Eleanor sat by the fireplace, reading aloud to Angel, her thoughts drifted back to Mrs. Miller's words. She couldn't deny that there were challenges to caring for a rescued dog. Angel, despite his gentle nature, still had moments of anxiety, especially during thunderstorms or when loud noises startled him. But Eleanor was determined to help him overcome his fears. She enrolled him in obedience classes, where he learned basic commands and socialized with other dogs. She took him on long walks in the woods, exposing him to new sights and sounds, helping him build confidence. Gradually, Angel's anxieties lessened. He became more relaxed, more trusting, more playful. He learned to fetch, to roll over, to sit patiently for treats. He even started to enjoy the company of other dogs, his playful barks echoing through the park. Eleanor watched his progress with pride, her heart swelling with love for the resilient creature who had captured her heart. She realized that Mrs. Miller's judgment was irrelevant. What mattered was the bond she shared with Angel, a bond built on love, trust, and mutual healing. The winter holidays were approaching, and a festive spirit had settled over the town. Garlands adorned the lampposts, Christmas carols played softly in the shops, and the air was filled with the scent of pine needles and cinnamon. Eleanor, despite her usual enjoyment of the season, felt a tinge of melancholy. This would be her first Christmas without her sister, Mary, who had passed away earlier that year. Mary had been her closest confidant, her partner in crime, her rock during difficult times. They had shared a love for books, a passion for gardening, and an unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity. Eleanor missed her terribly, especially during these special occasions. One chilly December afternoon, as Eleanor and Angel were decorating the Christmas tree, a knock on the door startled them. Eleanor opened it to find a young woman standing on the porch, her face flushed from the cold, a hesitant smile on her lips. "Hello," the woman said, her voice soft. "My name is Sarah. I'm a veterinarian at Speed Vet. I was wondering if I could see Angel." Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. Sarah, the kind assistant who had cared for Angel during his initial days at the clinic. She hadn't seen her since bringing Angel home. "Sarah, of course, come in." Eleanor welcomed her, stepping aside. "It's so good to see you." Sarah entered the cozy cottage, her eyes widening at the sight of the decorated Christmas tree and the festive decorations. Angel, recognizing her instantly, ran towards her, barking excitedly and wagging his tail furiously. "Oh, Angel!" Sarah exclaimed, kneeling down to embrace him. "You look wonderful." She looked up at Eleanor, her eyes shining with admiration. "You've done an amazing job with him, Mrs. Peterson. He's completely transformed." Eleanor smiled, her heart warmed by Sarah's praise. "Please call me Eleanor," she said, "and thank you. He's brought so much joy into my life." Sarah spent the afternoon with Eleanor and Angel, sharing stories of Angel's progress at the clinic and catching up on each other's lives. Eleanor learned that Sarah was new to town, having moved from the city after a difficult breakup. She had always loved animals and had found solace in her work at the clinic. "I know this might seem strange, but would you be interested in joining me for Christmas dinner? I'm all alone this year, and I'd love to have some company." Eleanor's heart swelled with gratitude. She had been dreading spending Christmas alone, and Sarah's invitation was a welcome surprise. "Sarah, that's so kind of you," she replied, her voice filled with emotion. "I'd love to." Christmas Day arrived, and Eleanor and Angel made their way to Sarah's small apartment. The aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon filled the air, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Sarah had decorated her apartment with festive cheer, and a small Christmas tree twinkled in the corner. They shared a delicious meal, exchanging stories and laughter. Angel, the center of attention, received plenty of pats and treats. Eleanor, watching Sarah's gentle interaction with Angel, realized that they shared a deep connection, a love for animals that transcended age and circumstance. As the day drew to a close, Eleanor felt a sense of peace and contentment she hadn't experienced since Mary's passing. She had found a new friend in Sarah, a kindred spirit who understood the profound bond between humans and animals. And in Angel, she had found a loyal companion, a furry guardian angel who had brought light and laughter back into her life. The new year brought a sense of renewal and optimism. Angel, now fully recovered from his physical injuries, was a picture of health and vitality. His fur had grown back, thick and glossy, and his eyes sparkled with mischief and joy. He had become a beloved member of the community, known for his friendly demeanor and his playful antics in the park. Eleanor, too, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her bond with Angel had not only healed her emotional wounds, but had also opened her heart, to new possibilities. She had become more active in the community, volunteering at the local animal shelter and participating in fundraising events for animal welfare. One spring morning, as Eleanor and Angel were enjoying their daily walk in the park, they encountered a group of children playing frisbee. Angel, his tail wagging excitedly, watched the flying disc with keen interest. One of the children, a young boy with bright eyes and a mischievous grin, noticed Angel's fascination and tossed the frisbee in his direction. Angel, his instincts taking over, darted after the frisbee, catching it midair with a triumphant bark. The children erupted in cheers, their laughter echoing through the park. Angel, proud of his accomplishment, trotted back to the boy, dropping the frisbee at his feet. The boy, beaming with delight, patted Angel's head. "You're a good dog," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Eleanor, watching the interaction, felt a surge of pride. Angel, once a timid and fearful creature, had blossomed into a confident and playful companion. As they continued their walk, Eleanor noticed a woman sitting on a bench, observing them with a thoughtful expression. The woman, middle-aged with kind eyes and a gentle smile, approached Eleanor hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft. "I couldn't help but notice your dog. He's beautiful." Eleanor smiled, her heart swelling with affection for Angel. "Thank you," she replied. "His name is Angel." The woman nodded. "He seems very happy." She paused, a hesitant look on her face. I lost my dog a few months ago. He was my best friend, my companion for many years. I miss him terribly." Eleanor's heart went out to the woman. She understood the pain of losing a beloved pet, the emptiness that it left behind. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice filled with compassion. "It's never easy to say goodbye." The woman sighed. "I've been thinking about getting another dog, but I'm not sure if I'm ready. It's hard to imagine ever loving another dog the way I loved him." Eleanor nodded understandingly. "It takes time," she said, "but sometimes opening your heart to another creature can help heal the pain." The woman looked at Angel, her eyes filled with longing. "He's a lucky dog," she said softly. "He has a wonderful home." Eleanor smiled. "He does," she agreed, "and he's brought so much joy into my life." As the woman walked away, Eleanor felt a pang of doubt. Was she being selfish by keeping Angel all to herself? Could he bring the same joy and companionship to someone else? Someone who was grieving the loss of a beloved pet? The thought lingered in her mind, casting a shadow over her usually cheerful demeanor. She looked at Angel, his tail wagging happily as he chased a butterfly, and a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Was she doing the right thing by keeping him? The encounter with the grieving woman in the park planted a seed of doubt in Eleanor's mind, a seed that grew with each passing day. She found herself observing Angel with a new perspective, noticing his playful interactions with other dogs, his gentle demeanor with children, his innate ability to bring smiles to the faces of those around him. She thought about the woman's words, "He's a lucky dog. He has a wonderful home." And she wondered, was it truly enough? Was she fulfilling Angel's needs, not just physically, but emotionally and socially? Eleanor wrestled with these questions, her heart torn between her love for Angel and her growing sense of responsibility. She confided in Sarah, sharing her doubts and anxieties. Sarah listened patiently, her brow furrowed in concern. "Eleanor," she said gently, "I understand your concerns, but you've given Angel a second chance at life. You've shown him love and compassion when he needed it most." "I know," Eleanor replied, her voice laced with uncertainty. "But what if he could bring that same joy to someone else? Someone who is lonely, who is grieving, who needs him as much as I do?" Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "It's a valid question," she acknowledged, "but the decision ultimately lies with you. You know Angel best. You know what's in his heart." Eleanor spent the next few days in quiet contemplation, observing Angel, reflecting on their journey together, and weighing the pros and cons of her difficult decision. She recalled the joy he brought into her life, the companionship, the unconditional love. But she also recognized his capacity for even greater impact, his ability to heal and connect with others. One evening, as Eleanor and Angel were curled up by the fireplace, a storm raged outside. The wind howled, the rain lashed against the windows, and thunder boomed in the distance. Angel, usually unfazed by storms, whimpered and trembled, seeking comfort in Eleanor's arms. As she held him close, stroking his fur and whispering reassurances, a realization dawned on her. Angel, despite his resilience, still carried the scars of his past. He needed stability, security, a constant source of love and support. And she, despite her doubts, was the one who could provide that for him. She looked into his eyes, those deep brown eyes filled with trust and affection, and a wave of certainty washed over her. She couldn't give him up. He was her family, her companion, her furry soulmate. With a newfound clarity, Eleanor made her decision. She would keep Angel not out of selfishness, but out of love and responsibility. She would continue to provide him with the safe and loving home he deserved, while also exploring ways to share his love and compassion with others. She would volunteer with him at the animal shelter, bringing comfort to abandoned and neglected animals. She would take him to visit the elderly at the local nursing home, sharing his warmth and affection with those who needed it most. She would find ways to spread Angel's light, to let his story inspire others to open their hearts and homes to animals in need. With a renewed sense of purpose, Eleanor embraced her role as Angel's guardian, her heart filled with love and gratitude for the extraordinary dog who had not only healed her wounds, but had also shown her the true meaning of compassion and selflessness. The decision to keep Angel brought a renewed sense of peace and purpose to Eleanor's life. She no longer questioned her motives or doubted her ability to provide him with the love and care he deserved. Instead, she focused on cherishing their bond and finding ways to share his positive influence with the world. True to her word, Eleanor became a regular volunteer at the local animal shelter. With Angel by her side, she spent countless hours comforting abandoned and neglected animals, offering them a gentle touch, a kind word, and a glimmer of hope in their often bleak existence. Angel, with his gentle demeanor and his own history of hardship, seemed to have a unique ability to connect with these animals. He would approach them cautiously, his tail wagging softly, his eyes filled with empathy. He would sit patiently beside them, offering a comforting presence, a furry shoulder to lean on. The shelter staff marveled at Angel's calming influence. Dogs who had been withdrawn and fearful would wag their tails tentatively in his presence. Cats who had hissed and scratched at any human approach would purr contentedly as he brushed against their fur. Even the most timid creatures seemed to find solace in his gentle companionship. Eleanor and Angel also became regular visitors at the local nursing home. Every week, they would make their rounds, bringing smiles and laughter to the residents. Angel, with his infectious enthusiasm and his love for attention, was a natural therapy dog. He would sit patiently while residents stroked his fur, his tail thumping happily against the floor. He would perform tricks, eliciting delighted laughter with his clumsy attempts at rolling over and playing dead. The residents, many of whom were lonely and isolated, looked forward to Angel's visits with eager anticipation. They would share stories of their own beloved pets, their faces lighting up with fond memories. They would confide in Angel, whispering secrets and fears they had never shared with another soul. Eleanor watched these interactions with a sense of wonder and gratitude. Angel, the once abandoned and abused dog, had become a beacon of hope and healing, a furry ambassador of love and compassion. He had not only transformed her life but was also touching the lives of countless others. One afternoon, as Eleanor and Angel were leaving the nursing home, a young woman approached them, her eyes filled with tears. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to thank you. My grandmother hasn't smiled like that in months. Your dog, he's a miracle worker." Eleanor smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "He has a special gift," she agreed. He knows how to touch people's hearts. As they walked home, Eleanor reflected on Angel's journey. From the depths of despair in that dark alley to the heights of love and compassion. He had come so far. He had overcome adversity, healed from his wounds, and found his true calling to spread joy and comfort to those in need. Angel, trotting happily beside her, seemed to sense her thoughts. He looked up at her with his soulful brown eyes, his tail wagging, his whole body radiating love and gratitude. Eleanor smiled, her heart overflowing with affection for the extraordinary dog who had not only changed her life, but had also left an indelible mark on the hearts of so many others. Spring blossomed into summer, painting the town in vibrant hues of green and gold. Angel, now a seasoned therapy dog, continued his weekly visits to the nursing home and the animal shelter, his presence a source of comfort and joy to all he encountered. Eleanor, her heart overflowing with pride, watched him flourish, her own life enriched by his unwavering love and devotion. One sunny afternoon, as Eleanor and Angel were strolling through the park, a familiar figure caught her eye. It was the woman from the previous spring, the one who had lost her beloved dog and had expressed her admiration for Angel. She was sitting on a bench, a small dog curled up in her lap. Eleanor hesitated, unsure whether to approach her, but the woman, spotting them, smiled warmly and beckoned them over. "Eleanor, it's so good to see you again," she greeted her, her voice filled with genuine warmth. "And look at you, Angel. You haven't changed a bit." Angel, recognizing her scent, wagged his tail excitedly and nudged her hand with his nose. The woman laughed, her eyes sparkling with affection. "This is Daisy." She introduced the small dog in her lap. "I adopted her from the shelter a few weeks ago. She's still a bit shy, but she's coming out of her shell." Eleanor smiled, her heart warmed by the sight of the woman and her new companion. "She's lovely," she remarked. "I'm so glad you found each other." The woman nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I have you and Angel to thank for that," she confessed. "After our conversation last year, I realized that I wasn't ready to give up on love. I started volunteering at the shelter, and that's where I met Daisy. She needed a home, and I needed her." Eleanor's heart swelled with emotion. She had never imagined that her encounter with this woman would have such a profound impact. Angel, with his gentle spirit and his ability to connect with others, had played a pivotal role in bringing these two souls together. As they chatted, Eleanor learned that Daisy had been rescued from a neglectful home, her spirit broken, her trust in humans shattered. But with patience and love, the woman had helped her heal, and now, Daisy was thriving in her new environment. Eleanor watched as Daisy, emboldened by Angel's presence, jumped down from the woman's lap and tentatively approached Angel, her tail wagging hesitantly. Angel, sensing her nervousness, responded with gentle nudges and playful licks, inviting her to join him in a game of chase. The sight of the two dogs frolicking in the park, their laughter echoing through the trees, filled Eleanor with a profound sense of joy and fulfillment. Angel, the once abandoned and abused dog, had not only found his own happy ending but had also paved the way for others to find theirs. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, Eleanor and the woman exchanged farewells, promising to stay in touch. Eleanor watched as they walked away, Daisy trotting happily beside her new owner, her tail wagging high. A wave of contentment washed over Eleanor. Angel, her furry soulmate, her guardian angel, had come full circle. He had overcome adversity, healed from his wounds, and found his true purpose, to spread love, joy, and healing wherever he went. And in doing so, he had not only transformed her life but had also touched the lives of countless others, leaving a legacy of compassion and kindness that would ripple through the community for years to come. As they walked home, hand in paw, Eleanor looked at Angel, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. He was more than just a pet. He was her family, her confidant, her inspiration. He had taught her the true meaning of unconditional love, the power of resilience, and the importance of opening one's heart to the healing power of connection. And as the stars twinkled in the night sky, Eleanor knew that their journey together was far from over. They had many more adventures to share, many more hearts to touch, and many more lives to change. For Angel, the dog who had once been lost and alone, had found his true home, not just in her heart, but in the hearts of all those who had been fortunate enough to cross his path.